Jessica Alstrom, spiritual teacher, medical intuitive, and quantum integration specialist, answers your spiritual questions and assists you through understanding your personal process while providing tools and techniques to move swiftly through the journey back to light.
Hello and welcome to the Transcendence Podcast. This is your host, Jessica Alstrom, and I was actually pulled off the treadmill this morning to come in early and do this particular podcast. Thank you, Spirit. And I was urged to do this podcast because, I work with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of basically light workers, and that has become the clients that I have really connected with over the last couple of years, is the volunteers, the empaths, the light workers, the healers, the seekers, the ones who don't know they're healers yet, the ones who don't know they're teachers yet. Somehow they find me, and I felt inspired and physically removed from my resistant exercise that I wasn't in the mood for, so thank you, Spirit. But to come in and do this podcast, and this podcast is for you. This podcast is for the empaths and the light workers and the volunteers and the seekers and the ones who feel completely lost and alone on a planet or an environment that feels scary. And, although that my roster lately looks like, spiritual teachers in the makings, and I wanted to thank you all for emailing me your stories and your aha moments and your questions, because now that I've moved my my work internationally, it's so amazing to see that regardless of where you are on the planet, we're all in the same boat, and we're really all going through the same things. And the overall theme that I've noticed doing our Skype sessions with you guys out in the ethers and the other side of the world is that that feeling of intense fear of the unknown of this environment is debilitating at times. And you have this intense urge within your being to do something, and you want to be of service, yet your environment is scary and the world feels lonely and the people around you don't understand, your alien talk or your star talk or your empathic talk. They don't understand that their words cut like a sharp knife because you're so sensitive. They don't understand that you can't eat the way that regular people can eat because our bodies are so highly attuned to energy and frequency that putting anything in our bodies is kind of like pure poison. And the sounds and the planet itself can be so new and scary that a lot of us get really, really ill. And if you haven't chosen illness as your filter system to resist your environment, then you found yourself with a lot of relationship conflicts or money conflicts, because I am big about helping people find heaven on earth, and the way that we play here is time, relationships, health, and abundance. And when one of those feels out of reach, it can feel so intensely scary here, because you don't feel understood. Working a corporate job is feels like physical death, and maybe you're doing it, but you're not doing, you're sick while you're doing it because it's just bleeding your energy out. And, money, you don't really understand the concept of being valued by something that is pretty much worthless. That's so out of your reality and your belief systems intuitively that kind of playing this game is, it's not fun for you. It's not fun for you. And I'm going to tell you that all of these podcasts that I've been making, where I'm bridging spirituality and science together, is for this particular reason. Because if you don't understand the scientific game that we're playing here on Earth, and energy and frequency and vibration and the laws of the universe, attraction and reflection, then you are going to feel alone, unheard, unseen, unloved, and you're going to not feel nurtured by anything, because you're going to be completely underestimated, and you're not going to feel like anyone speaks your language. And because you have that belief system that you probably developed early on, then you find yourself attracting lots and lots of people who don't understand you. And I will tell you that for empaths, lightworkers, volunteers, sensitives, extrasensory people, I think that the biggest struggle that we've felt here is our family. And our family is the chosen prophecy of our shadow work. It is where we came to unlearn how to be source energy, how we learn to not feel connected, how we learned how to feel separate, how we learned to, feel alone. And, a lot of my empaths have intense allergies to, nature and animals and foods. And that's all coming from a fear of, I don't feel safe here. And this podcast is going to be about your physical body and the physical planet, because I'm not sure if anyone has ever really, really communicated to you on how to become the master of this thing we call mind and body. And we all know how to, lose our minds and go into our imagination if we're volunteers, hopefully, and empaths, because that's usually where we feel safe. But the real work is ascending with the physical body, this structure. And I will tell you that the body is the saboteur. The body is the one that has turned against you, and that's coming from a belief system that the world is against you and the world doesn't understand you. So therefore your body stops understanding you, because your thoughts, feelings, desires, emotions are all processed through the filtration system of the ego that you are born with. It's like you come in and you're this perfection of who you are, and you get yourself a body, and you get yourself an ego component. And the ego component is there to remind you that you are separate so that you can have a very unique experience. And we could look at it kind of like when you come down here. When's the last time you dressed up for Halloween? Maybe you decided that you were going to dress up as a witch, and for the entire day you were going to play that character and feel what that would be like, and talk like that, and interact like that. And for that whole entire day you got to be something outside of what you normally are. And that's really no different than the game that we're playing here, where soul meets body, because we're just playing a character for a little bit of time. And unfortunately, it's almost like the witch character that you played on Halloween. You forgot that you were, you forgot that you weren't actually a witch, and so you're trying to stumble around and learn how to be a witch, and so it's chaos. And so this podcast is for you guys out there that feel, scared and are feeling like the world doesn't understand you, and you feel like you don't have power to be who you came to be, and you feel like the universe is not going to support you financially for being a light worker and an empath. And that's not true. But you've got to become the master of your body in order to become the master of the universe. And here's why. Because when you come down, you have a very fifth, sixth dimensional perspective of whatever I think it is. There is no time and space. There is no waiting point. It's just experience, 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 experience. Go into that different, unique perspective, and then pop out and have a different perspective. But when you actually get a body, you have an agreement with that body that you are going to move into this spiritual amnesia, and you are going to forget that you are source energy, the frequency of prime creator, the one. You're going to forget that you're completely connected with all other, beings on the planet. You're going to forget about oneness. You're going to forget about potential. You're going to forget about choice. And then you're born into a family that's going to perpetuate certain themes that you came here to learn. So if you came here to learn self-love, and that was one of the things that you chose to experience while you came down to the planet, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to be born to parents who don't love themselves, and they're going to show you how that's done. And because you need to learn through example and observation. That's how the belief systems are constructed, is basically through observation and example. So you're watching your environment and you're learning how to survive on a planet that feels very alien to you. And you're watching these parents not love themselves, or maybe one of them doesn't love themselves, and therefore, hurt people, and then you find them not being the best example for you, and you finding that your self-love is being stripped intuitively, probably by the age of like 2.5. And then you get to grow up in that reality where you have not loved yourself. You don't like who you are, and then law of attraction is going to bring you evidence of your belief systems over and over and over again to remind you of the theme that you've come here to play. It's constantly like every time law of attraction manifests, it's another reminder why you shouldn't love yourself. It's like a gut check. It's like someone's punching you in the face. It's like the biggest trigger, the reminder of the theme. The theme is the thing that's going to keep urging you. It's going to keep calling you. Because we came down here to play a specific theme out, although we have lots and lots of different lessons that we want to learn while we're down here, because a soul doesn't need to learn patience. A soul doesn't need to learn compassion. I just put something on Facebook the other day about the Aborigines, how they don't say please and thank you, because in their culture, it is just expected that you take care of yourself and you take care of others, and it's not something that you have to beg for. So a spirit is never going to be begging for love. A spirit is never going to be begging for acceptance. It just is accepted. It is just loved. It is pure love. So when we come down here into the filtration systems of fear, shame, guilt, humiliation, resentment, and pain, we start to disembody what intuitively is basically leaking through every pore that we have, and we alter our state of being based on what we're seeing, experiencing, and observing. And we basically start to live a double life, even as a baby. I've watched my 3-year-old try to manipulate me, and I'm a pretty lax parent. I mean, I would consider myself the hippie parent generation, where I let my kids feel their feelings. I mean, they have certain rules that keep them out of danger, but I don't teach fear, which is very, very different, danger and fear. And, and I watch him so set in his intention to experience what he wants to experience, that he has learned how to tell me what I want to hear in order to be able to achieve that, that choice that he's making. And I just kind of watch in awe, because at 3 years old, he's developed this power of lying and manipulation that is only based in survival. Because when you're a little kid, and I said this in my light workshops, the mind of a child is whatever they're focused on is the biggest, most important thing in their universe. So when my 3-year-old wants a cookie and I say no, then, or I took his cookie, which I would be, but if someone else took his cookie, that would be the equivalent of someone stealing my car. Because in this now moment, it's the biggest thing in my universe. I mean, my car gives me freedom. And in that moment, he's using that cookie to experience joy, or, satisfy hunger, or some sort of desired element that he is generating. And so we don't realize that the impact of especially an empathic, light worker, volunteer, extrasensory, being that has come down here, it has a very different meaning for us. Imagine that it's kind of like you're used to having every single thing you want instantly. You're able to share and give love freely with no condition. And you come down here and all of a sudden there's conditions, and there's judgments, and there's rules, and there's obstacles, and there's time. And, then you learn how to live in an environment that doesn't support your natural intuitive aspects. And that's And that's the hardest part for the empaths out there. Because one thing intuitively I have seen in every single empath that I've ever worked with, including myself, is that we cannot treat people the way they treat us. We can't. It's not in our genetic makeup. Regardless of how abused we are, or, how hurt we are, or, how violently we are spoken to, we naturally turn the other cheek. It's like we want to at times. We want to smack people in the face, but it's just not within us. And maybe when you were, 14 to 28, when you were lost in your ego cycle, maybe you did do those things. Maybe you did hurt people, not ever on purpose. But once you awaken and you really start to move back into that authentic being that you came here to be, you will never be able to treat people the way that they treat you. You know what it's like to walk in other people's shoes. And so you have a tendency to be very supportive for other people's journeys. You have a natural healing aspect about you, which means you're a natural peacemaker and a caretaker. And you've learned love on an early age from giving and taking care of. And that's how you were loved, because as an empath, we know what people need before they know what they need. We know what they need to hear. And you know what? All we ever want, deep, deep down, is to be treated the same. But let me ask you out there, is there anyone, maybe one person, is there anyone who really, really sees you the way that you see everyone else? And that was the hardest thing for me. And that was what created probably the biggest pit of loneliness within me, is that when I was waking up, I started to have so much compassion for people because I realized how hard this was. Being completely responsible for my own vibration and owning all my crap and accepting all my flaws and realizing that I chose my parents and I chose all of this, that was hard enough. But then to not be supported in that, and not be seen for that, and not be seen for all the work that I do correctly, and all the things that I do right, and the generosity that I have, and it was overlooked. And then I realized that, working deep, deep down with the body, because after I really moved on my spiritual journey, and I realized that I was not manifesting the things that I really wanted, because there was a huge element that I wasn't incorporating into my manifestations, and that was my physical body. And my physical body, if you've listened to my last workshop about Intro to the Timeline, the physical body is the marker of memory. It's the container of time. It's holding all of the aspects about the way you've seen yourself, and all your self-judgments, and all of your pain and drama and trauma is stored at a biological level, and that makes up your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is a combination of past, present, future stored events, the Akashic information from the past, future, and parallel. It is your ego construct. It is your memories. It is your personal judgment of reflection of how you see yourself. And if that's magnetic energy, just like my thoughts and beliefs are, then what would happen is I would sit in, meditation, and I would pulse out a deep desire for, someone to connect with me on a soul level. And my body was basically counter-intending it because I was scared of people, because nobody understood me. So I'm sending out this rocket of desire that says, bring me awesome people that I can connect with. And my body is pulsing out a command of its own that's saying, please resist all people because no one understands me. And therefore, either nobody would show up or the wrong people would show up. And I did that for a long time before I started to dive back into biochemistry and realized that my cells were basically sending their own unique signal of protection. I was self-protecting in my own body because I was afraid of the world. I was afraid of, I was that kid who didn't like bugs and got itchy when she laid in the grass. And, it was like I was in such resistance of everything because my life was not safe, and I didn't feel safe. Therefore, nature wasn't safe. Therefore, people weren't safe. Therefore, I wouldn't be able to attract the money that I needed because I didn't feel safe, and therefore I was pushing that away. When you push people away, or you push energy away because your body's trying to hold on to its protective element, it's like you have this invisible force field that you've created for yourselves and nobody's getting in. Well, I will tell you that also means your spirit guides can't get in, and money can't get in, and help can't get in, because when you say no, it's literal to the universe. So your conscious mind and your higher self is pulsing out all of these amazing intentions for you, and your body is literally like counteracting them. It's like you send out this missile, this heat-seeking missile out, and all of a sudden, then as soon as you send that one out, your body sends one out that just totally destroys it, and nothing happens, and you're like, why am I alone? And so really what I wanted to do is I wanted to make light workers and empaths and extrasensory people much more aware of their physical body, because I'm going to tell you, as we're ascending to fifth dimension, you will not be able to go and stay there if you don't raise your body's vibration. And 2015, 2016, it's a total body game. It's all about cleaning out the timeline, the cellular memory, the old negative stories, the physical pain, the chemical pain, the emotional pain that's stored at a body level. And and that's why early on I dove into working with chiropractors, because I could see energetically what an impact, getting a chiropractic adjustment would do for just opening up the energy flow and putting the body back online to thrive and reboot. And I really love that aspect. But what I would notice is people would go get a chiropractic adjustment, and then 3 to 5 days later they were out of alignment again. Because again, if you're scared of your environment somewhere on a cellular level, you are going to repel help, which means you put supplements in your body that are designed to cure you, and you're resisting those too. I had a client in my office yesterday, and he's a 30-year-old indigo, very new energy, very sensitive. And I looked at his body and I said, okay, we're deficient in amino acids, proteins. We, are completely dehydrated, and I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing any magnesium, I'm totally depleted. And so, I kind of looked at him like, well, what are you doing? And he told me, I'm taking this, this, and this. Basically, he was taking, standard process, which was Catalin, which was greens powder, vitamin C, and magnesium calcium blend, which to me would be exactly probably what I would have put him on. I go with different supplements now, but that's exactly what I would have put him on, an amino acid and, some sort of enzyme to hold hydration. And he was taking that religiously. And I could tell that he was telling me the truth. So what I was seeing within him is a desire to be well. And he would ingest the vitamins. And then at the same time, the body was in desire to repel any support, because the people who played the supportive system as he grew up were the ones who hurt him. We don't realize how literal the body is. The body is as literal as the universe. You say you're broke, something's going to break. So it's kind of like we have to realize what is stored vibrationally, what stories are in the body. And I will tell you, the more stories and the more emotion and the more trauma and drama that you have stored at a cellular level, the more your mind is going to run out of control. The less you're going to be able to shut down that brain and mind at night. And therefore, you're not going to be totally able to completely reboot and have that sleep cycle where you can go back to source energy and you can be with the energy that you feel supported and loved with. That's why a lot of empaths find themselves enjoying sleep more than they enjoy real life, because when they're sleeping, they're home, but you're not going to evolve, and you're not probably going to get off this planet until you stop fearing it, because what you resist persists. And anyone out there who says, I'm not coming back here and I'm not doing this again, well, I will tell you that the soul is pretty competitive with itself, and it wants to get it right. And so it will continue to play on this planet until it moves through that ascension from its de-ascension process. And so when it comes down to it, it's really nothing's wrong with you guys. You're so perfect. And I was perfect, but I had to clean up my body. My body was beat up by my reality. It was lost and afraid and sick and overweight, and I felt ugly, and I would try to speak and my words would not come out right because I was blocked in my truth. I felt like there was a giant hole in my stomach where my solar plexus should have been, because I never had access to my power. The things that came here, the things that I brought in my life to utilize to help people, were actually shunned. So when the very thing that makes you great is put down over and over and over and over and over again, the body begins to hate itself. And the ego begins to feed on that. Because the ego is the mortal version of you, and its time is limited. And so it is always afraid of death. And the higher self within you, the soul within you, the spirit within you is never afraid of that, because it knows that it is just basically like wearing the witch costume for a little bit of time. And, you know, it's here to basically play the witch and get the Academy Award. And as soon as it's done, that will be that, and it will move on to another experience. And so it's a body game. And that's why I bring so much epigenetics, so much biochemistry, so much brain-body connection into my work, because it is great to go see your prosperity coach or have positive affirmations, or, you know, take a workshop online where you learn a modality of energy medicine. But I will tell you, 90% of the people that I speak to online who are Reiki masters don't do Reiki on themselves. What's up with that? Exactly. So it's kind of like the self-sabotaging behavior is because on a subconscious level, you loathe yourself. And remember how I said that empaths won't hurt people? They can't. Well, there's one person that they will hurt, and that is themselves. They will completely unconsciously beat themselves to a pulp and create illnesses in their bodies and create obstacles and issues. And what used to be the fear of the outside world now becomes the fear of the inside world, and we're pushing even spirit away. So an empath who comes to basically, your whole entire purpose is to help people through their awakening. That's why you came. You're here to help people see how amazing they are. You're here to help people heal from their own traumas and dramas. You're here to be the light in the dark for them. Yet you won't be your own light in your own dark. And one of the things that I'm noticing with the life coaching certification, and the reason why I add this certification on, is because you cannot go through this program and not turn into some sort of teacher or healer. You can't. It's because that's what you're born to do. And if anyone out there is resonating with my particular work, there's nothing that's not synchronistic in the world. So people who are coming to me are coming for a specific reason. And that's why I add this certification, because the left brain loves the letters after your name. The left brain loves to feel valued through, you know, I'm trained in this and I'm trained in that. But really, this is the university of you. And the first 3 months, you know, I let everybody know you will not be coaching anyone except yourself. Because it is so easy to teach someone else what you know. It is so much easier to go help someone who's in pain than to help yourself. And yes, you might have bought into that whole selfish piece, and you might have bought into this, you know, it's irresponsible to, you know, self-nurture when there's a lot of people out there. But if you're still buying into that, then that's a belief system that I would say change immediately, because you first have to heal yourself, because you got lost. You got lost on the planet. You got beat up. Nobody understands you. I mean, you're basically, you're spouting off Christ consciousness ideas about love and unconditional love and, you know, let's take care of each other and let's help each other. And people who have been recycled on this planet for a really, really long time, they are still stuck in the power piece, and it's all about power. That's how they feel loved, is through power and things. And when you start talking your, you know, hippie talk they shut you down. And the reason why is because they're not ready to hear the information. But guess who is here ready? You. And you've heard me talk about codependency. You've heard me talk about, the dark side of law of attraction. This is all coming from the body issues. It's the distorted version of how you see yourself. Just because the world has pushed you away and not understood you does not mean that there is anything wrong with you. What it actually means is that there's something right with you, because you didn't come here to be the same. You came here to be different so you could start breaking down old paradigms. You could start slowly planting the seed of change. You could start vibrating the essence of unconditional love from your DNA while you sit on the couch and watch your favorite movie. Even though your mind and body feels like it's in hell, your soul is still doing exactly what it needs to do here. Even if you just sat in your house for 50 years, you're still radiating through your entire soul song the frequency of unconditional love. And maybe you've surrounded yourself with animals because they're the only ones who love you unconditionally, and that is fine. But the self-loathing is going to make you a vibrational match for disease. It's going to make you a vibrational match to poverty. It's going to make you a vibrational match to, nobody understanding you. And you are regenerating that feeling of loneliness because you feel like you are not your best friend. You are not the soulmate that you're seeking. And until we dive into that and start recalibrating the way that the body sees its experience and clean out the timeline of the mistakes and the rejections and the pains and the trauma that lies within the cellular structure of your body, until we do that, you're going to take 10 steps forward and you're going to take 5 steps back. Because every time your conscious higher self pulls you in the direction of joy, your body is going to snatch you back into pain and fear, because the body is the wounded child. And you're going to, you're going to say it's not fair. I had this amazing, top producer, CEO, alpha female in my office yesterday. And, she was pretty remarkable as far as her resume went. And we started getting into the session. And within about 15 minutes, she turned into this 8-year-old child and was stomping her foot and saying, "This is so not fair," and da-da-da-da. And I just started laughing because the body was kind of taking over and the inner child was coming out. And I realized that she had put value on herself by what she could accomplish through success, and there was still that little child within that still didn't think it was fair, and so that's the sabotage. The body, the cellular memory, the ego construct is sabotaging your efforts to feel safe on this planet. And the very suit that you came to wear to navigate on the planet is also the very thing that is holding you back. And so some of the things that I teach on, how to clean up the body's vibration is to, first and foremost, you need to do a perimeter check. You need to look at who's around you, because as an empath, we bleed and feed off of other people's energies. That's, to us, empathy is another form of communication. It lets us know what people are going through so that we can be of service. And that is one of your strongest superhero qualities, but it is also going to self-sabotage you if you don't know how to use it properly. And I do have a podcast on empathy, so find that if you want any more explanation on that. But the very thing that makes you great is your ability to feel and know what other people are going through. And yes, we want that more than anything. Is we want people to see us. We want people to, see us for what we do right. We want people to see us for the efforts we take. We want people to see how we've come to people's rescues when they would never come to ours. We want people to, pat us on the back for being there through endless conversations, yet if we called someone else, they would not be there for us. We empaths have the one-sided relationships. The empath will find and be sexually attracted to a narcissist because as that pain pleasure, is so addictive in the brain-body connection, we literally seek we seek and are attracted to the very things that are going to wound us, because we don't believe and deserve that, we're good enough. And when you don't believe that you're good enough, or you don't feel, like what you're supposed to be doing on the planet, that's coming from a place that you have believed about yourself, that there's something wrong with you. And that's where we have to change it. We can't change it through, going to a leadership weekend and getting all pumped up and excited, because guess what? You're going to go back to your body, and you're going to go back into your real reality, and you're going to be inflicted with all of those triggers and memories of who you actually have created and thought yourself to be. And that's what I mean about perimeter check, is you have to see who's around you. Anyone can go feel great at a Tony Robbins event, but can you feel great in your living room surrounded by the people who don't understand you? And that's what I mean, is the perimeter check is all about redefining relationships. And as an empath, being aware that you are taking in people's energies and you are giving way too much of yourself. So the first thing that we do in sessions one-on-one is find out who's in the environment, and how do those people make you feel, and list everyone in your life, and then write down next to them what emotion comes up about how I see myself when I'm around this person. And when I'm around this person, do I feel 8 years old, 6 years old, 14 years old, and you can actually literally write that down, and you can do that all the way through the list. And I will tell you, the ones who bring fear and pain out in you, those are the ones for 30 days that you need to redefine that relationship, because those energies are like a drug to you, and it's like a spell that washes over you. And when you're around those people, you're not going to really be able to move forward, because they kind of lock you in place no matter how hard you try. And they're not going to see you, and they're not going to hear you, and they're not going to understand you, and they're never going to be there for you the way that you're there for them. And so that's a one-sided relationship. And I'm going to tell you, that's a form of self-abuse, because empaths are very self-abusing. We're really hard on ourselves. We think something's wrong with us. And narcissists and sociopaths are amazing at convincing us that we are the crazy ones. They are just like my 3-year-old can convince me, that he needs a cookie, or I'm not a good mom. We can have our empathy used against us, because people know how sensitive we are. And so therefore they will kind of like flip that switch and have us even take responsibility for what they've created. And that just adds to our more self-loathing and our more self-judgment. And then we get so lost that it becomes hell on earth, because we've got this urge inside of us to be of service and do what we came here to do. And yet everything in our body is triggering us back to us not being good enough and feeling good enough. And so that's one of the things, is your perimeter check. I would say that people are way more toxic than food. People are way more toxic than drugs. Because once someone gets in your environment and starts to push your buttons about who you are and what's wrong with you, then you're constantly, as a child, seeking their attention and their need to be loved. And so it becomes like this endless abusive cycle. And that's really hard to get over and through unless you can be aware. But if you can get 30 days of redefining your relationship with those people, you can get 30 days away from eating white sugar. You can get 30 days away from, that coworker means, I don't know, move your chair away, or whatever. You need to do what you need to do in order to get space and time, so that you can start seeing yourself for more of who you are, and less of the reflection of what the body keeps being triggered. And that's why I do so much PTSD work. I say, if you had a childhood, you have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, it's the trigger. It's when someone has that tone with you and you immediately jump into that defensive mode. That's all body stuff. All body. So I'm going to be doing a lot of podcasts on the brain-body connection, the subconscious, the unconscious, the trigger work, PTSD, because this is really what this game is about right now. is there's nothing wrong with you and there's nothing broken. You have just become very distorted, and the body is holding on to all the memories of who you were. It's playing that old character when you're trying to be your new character. And so it's kind of like this fight and this war that you are at with yourself. And that's not doing you any good on the planet, because you're here to basically help yourself and other people overcome that darkness with that light. And you have that light switch within. And for a little bit of time, you might need a guide to be your flashlight, but that's okay, because that's what we're all here for. We're here to see each other's blind spots. But if you don't have anyone in your life that is going to point out all of the amazing things about you, then it's going to be a very lonely, painful journey. So I'm going to leave you with that today. And this is also going to be a continued podcast, because there's a lot more information that I can give you on other ways that you can, start working on cleaning out the body's frequencies of the past and helping the body change its character and who you choose to be instead of what you've been. And I'm going to leave you with that you are here as an empath to not only love everyone else, but you're here to love yourselves. And there's lots of ways that we can trick the body into loving itself. And there's lots of ways that we can clean out all the trauma of what the body's been through in order to give you a clean slate, so that you can start vibrating in the now moment and create that neutral, joyful expression of love in the future. So for the empaths out there, give yourself some extra love today. And look around and see who's in your environment. And you know what? If there's no one in your environment that is holding you down, then I want you to hold up a mirror, because it's you. It's you that's holding you back. And that's the person that we're going to heal. And that's the body that we're going to release its pressure and stress and fear from. And it's an onward journey, and just take moment by moment. And don't forget to ground, because empaths never want to be in their bodies. You can go on YouTube and do a grounding meditation. I'm actually going to create one with music, and I will be working on that hopefully this week, so that you can just put that on in the morning and at night and just go full connect into source energy and Mother Earth and be one circuit instead of all over the place and overwhelmed. And empaths, you need to ground at least 8 times today. So, and just get into the present moment. Go to gratitude. Find things that are right with you. Find things that are right with your life, and hold those in your heart space, and you will be fine. So until next time, keep doing what you're doing. You guys are awesome.
Thank you for joining Jessica on this transcending episode. Email us directly at jessicaalstrom@gmail.com with your questions and personal challenges you would like addressed on the show. And join us on next week's podcast. You are not alone, and remember, your higher self speaks to you through people, places, circumstances, and events.